Welcome to Simplify My Small Business. This week, episode 57. In the red corner, myself, Simon, and in the blue corner...
Is that me?
It's you.
I'm in the blue. I wanted to be in the red. I wanted to be in the red.
Aren't you a blue belt now? Aren't you a blue belt now?
I see what you did. Yes, I am a blue belt.
But the whole point of this great intro is that with the black belt of business, this week joining us is Peter Cook. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Thank you very much for having me. Great to be here.
Now, Peter, you've got over 15 years' experience as a consultant and business coach, and you've worked with lots of different businesses. But you and I met when you did a seminar a few weeks ago through your Thought Leaders sort of hat. So I invited you to come down and have a chat to us on the show because I think for all of you out there, Peter is intensely interesting. He holds a Master's in Business in Organisational Change, a Bachelor of Science in Advanced Physics, a Bachelor of Laws with honours, and a Diploma in Financial Services. How the hell did you fit that in, Peter? I don't understand. You look so young.
Well, I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up, when I finished school. So I did law and science, thinking it might fit somewhere in there. Turns out I was completely wrong. Went into business, and the rest of it I've done while I've been working. So my Master's in Business was an applied degree, and I did that based on my consulting.
Okay. Well, the other half of the equation is that you're a fairly recent inductee to the world of fatherhood.
I am.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Scarlett's turning 4 months in 2 days.
Oh, wonderful. How's the sleep cycles going?
Not too bad. Not gonna complain. She's
no, don't. Never complain.
She's worth a little less sleep for. You guys both dead?
We are.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Cool.
I have a 6-year-old, a boy.
Excellent. Yep.
And I've got a 4.5 and a just about 2-year-old, boy and a girl.
Gorgeous.
Good fun. Keep you busy. You think you're busy when you're running a business, and then you get home,
Yes.
and then you think the business stuff's pretty simple.
Yep.
It's actually quite wonderful for putting everything else into context, I think, being a father.
Yeah, there's a lot of perspective right there.
Yeah.
Has it?
In Thought Leaders talk about getting the number of days down, and I know you guys talk about simplifying small business. Having kids is a really good motivator for both of those.
Yeah, very much so. Did you find a direct effect on the way you did things when Scarlett came along? Did it change things, or did you sort of have a bit of a plan for that happening?
Both. So my plan was to be working less as soon as she came along, and it's definitely the motivation to do that as well, to not want to be finishing dinner and then getting back online or spending weekends writing things and planning things. Much more motivation to have time with the family.
It's interesting how your perspective changes. I was just before I came in here, I'm actually recording at home. I'm sitting on my bed at home recording. As Simon will tell you, I do most of the time when we're recording.
Yep.
But my son is flying around the lounge room with the Wii controller in his hand, asking me to shoot some bird that he can't get past. and my heart wants to stay down there, but you also you have to get stuff done.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. Push, pull. So as soon as we finish recording today, I'm going to be down there chasing him around with a Wii controller in my hand.
I think the comment, Peter, about reducing your hours in your sort of practice is a good, interesting place to start. You were saying when you did the seminar that your business has turned over $1 million for the last 2 years, and I love people that don't just stand there and preach. You know, they do it themselves. So you wear quite a few different hats. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your businesses and give us the Peter Cook summary?
Sure. I'm obsessed with implementation, and so that's the thread that runs through everything. And my last book was about implementing projects that matter, and I do that in a few different contexts. So I work with corporates and teach them how to be more productive, successful and fulfilled through implementation workshops. I speak at conferences about implementation and making the important stuff happen. Work with small business owners, and done that for a long time, helping them work out what to do and to do it better. And the stuff I was talking about when you came along and saw me was implementing the Thought Leaders methodology in the practice. So for people who are thought leaders and are on their own, who are consultants, experts, speakers, writers, trainers, coaches, mentors, facilitators, help them implement projects in their practice to be more commercially successful.
I think implementation is a really interesting concept to me because I think it's something that a lot of business owners struggle with. We often, we're juggling so much and our time is often quite limited, and we have lots of ideas on paper, but getting to actually implement them is the difficult task, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's much more about what we put around ourselves than we think. Mostly when we don't get things done and when we aren't successful, we think, and we're told it's about us. We're not disciplined enough. We're not effective enough. We didn't have the right mindset. We didn't have enough character. And I think it's actually a lot more about what are the structures we put around ourselves, who are the people we have around us, have we set it up as a project successfully and effectively outside ourselves? Do we have the right accountability structures? Do we have the right methodology, etc.?
I don't know if you've seen those the internet memes going around with the different pictures, and one of them says, "This is what I think I do. This is what my mum thinks I do. This is what everyone." Have you seen those ones? You know the ones I'm talking about. So,
in my mind.
So if I was to get one of those for you, what would it say? What would you actually do?
It's a good question. I don't know what's in the actual pictures you're talking about, but I spend my time going between, I guess, wearing lots of different hats. And I think it's one of the differences between what we say to do in a practice and to do in a business. Is in a business, you really want to identify a niche. I don't know, that's something that you guys have talked about in the past, working out what's the one niche that a business will serve. In a practice, we talk about identifying multiple niches. So whatever it is that you're an expert in can often help different markets and different people. And how do you find different ways to go to market with the same thought leadership or same intellectual property?
Yeah. I guess what I was getting at too was that because you are divided between a few different areas in your business, do you have a fairly standard structure to your week, or does it change and vary as week by week?
It goes all over the place. I do spend 2 months a year overseas operating everything from, it was Indonesia last year, and we're off with Scarlett off to Europe in January and February this year. And so everything is, it's part of the world we live in, that we can run a business from anywhere in the world now, as long as you've got an internet connection and a phone. And then, each week will be completely different. And I think one of the old 80-20 rule, one of the advantages of, in effect, having 5 different businesses that I'm running is that I've only got 20% of my time in each one. So I have to force myself to say, all right, what is the most effective 20%? Because each of them could be full-time, but so then it would only be one.
Yeah. And that's a choice that you've made, I think, to go down that path, yeah?
Definitely. And I'd rather be doing different things and maintaining my interest and I think that the revenue model is, in a practice, is better having multiple income streams than just doing one thing.
I think we'll come back to the mobile working thing a bit later, because that's something that we've covered on Simplified before. That question of how you work overseas, how you structure your business and that kind of thing. One of the things that we like to cut through to on the show is how do our guests make money? Like, how do you actually earn your wage through your businesses?
So that's, in my case, it's through a practice. And one of the things we talk about in Thought Leaders is the distinction between a business and a practice. With a practice, it's about me doing speaking, doing training, doing mentoring, doing writing. So it's very much payment for exertion.
Hands-on.
Yeah. And obviously to do that at a $1 million level, or what we call a black belt level, it needs to be a high price to make that work. So people in practice, what we often find is they make the mistake of confining themselves to one market and one mode of delivery, which is a mistake I made for 10 years. I was a business coach. So my market was just small businesses and my mode was only coaching. Whereas now I make money from a number of different markets, and I do it through coaching, but also through training programs, through speaking, through books that I've written, through mentoring and through facilitation. So there's a lot more revenue streams, and I think in a practice that's really key. It's not just doing it as a speaker or as a coach or as a trainer, and not doing it through just targeting one specific market.
Diversifying your message.
Yeah.
Would I be correct in assuming that taking the knowledge that you had from your business coaching experience, you found it quite that there was quite an overlap with the other parts of your practice that you then built up?
Yeah, definitely. So one part of my practice is helping bookkeepers, selling an authored offering, so a set of procedure manuals to bookkeepers
Yes.
And Debbie, who's my partner in that part of my practice. But obviously there's a lot of business knowledge that goes into that. And one of the things fine working in companies, in big corporations, is the rules are pretty much the same for small business and big companies. Are the same issues, same economic supply, and same people issues seem to be everywhere. So definitely, small business is a great training ground for everything else that I'm doing.
You mentioned that one of your mistakes was treating your business as only focused on the small business market. Are there other mistakes that you think you made before you kind of got to this point? I know you mentioned a few in your video on your site.
We use a martial arts metaphor, like when you were talking before about being a black belt, of having, as you grow your practice, there's different levels. So at white belt, we talk about being at 120,000, yellow belt 240,000, green belt 360,000, up to black belt 720,000, and then up to $1 million expert. And there's a different focus at each level. So at the red belt level, which is 600,000 a year, we talk about focusing on leverage. I franchised my business coaching business when I was at white belt. So obviously that's a leverage activity. Franchising is almost the ultimate leverage activity. That when I was making $120,000 as a business coach, which according to our model was way too early. Spend a lot of money, spend a lot of time, had franchise consultants, lawyers, systematized everything, got all the franchise documents, everything done, sold 5 franchises, and then ended up buying them all back because it wasn't good enough to really make money out of. And that was a very, very expensive lesson in, I think, having the wrong strategy at the wrong time.
It's an interesting adage, isn't it, of business, that you almost need to have made mistakes to get to the successful business. And I'm sure that's a question you get asked about the Thought Leaders program a lot, is how can something show me the steps without me making those mistakes?
Yeah, and what we've done is and Matt Church, I should say, who's the founder of Thought Leaders and created this methodology originally, has found a methodology that works for growing a practice, and it's a different game than growing a business. And if you're a practice, if you're out making money from your thought leadership and doing it yourself, there are different rules and different strategies, and we get a lot of good meaning bad advice from people who know the game of business but don't know the game of running a practice. So often we're told things like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that, you're just swapping time for money. And you don't want someone else doing that. But in a practice, that's actually what you do. You do swap your time for money. You just want the price to be enough that you can still earn a black belt income doing that.
Sure. So the difference, just for our listeners, is basically in a business, it's a structure that you probably envisage selling a number of years down the track for a decent profit, or versus a practice where it's all about you and you're working hard to get that income. Yeah.
So I think from the ultimate big picture, they're both strategies for becoming financially independent. How you do it in a business is that you start, grow and exit a business, hopefully for $5 million or more, hopefully in 5 years. And then you'll be financially independent. In a practice, you run a practice at a black belt level for 10 years, put aside enough money in investments that you're then financially independent at the end of that. What I find happens with most people in business is they're not actually playing that game of start, grow and exit a business. Most people in business have actually bought themselves a job, and it's often a bad paying job. Doing, Michael Gerber says, working for a lunatic you can't sell, or that doesn't have a value outside yourself.
Yeah, that really cut through when you were doing a seminar. I think that idea that, a lot of people sort of go into business for themselves, and I think I mentioned it in the last episode of Simplify, but that if you're not earning an equivalent wage of what you'd be getting paid in the private sector, and you don't have the potential to sort of sell out for a decent sum within a reasonable time frame, you're really doing yourself a disservice.
And mostly in small business, it's going to be the latter, that you're not going to be able to pay yourself the same salaries you'd get commercial, so you need to be building something that you can sell. And the many, many small businesses that don't do that, getting something that's a saleable asset.
Absolutely. Adam, you were going to say something?
I was just I'm continuing to think about it, but I really like the idea of this level approach to learning that you're talking about within this thought leader program that you've got going on, Peter, because I think most of the education that we see for small business owners tells us what we can do, and it comes from people who've already done it before, but they never talk about the fact that they've spent 10 to 15 years to learn all of this stuff. And a lot of us make the mistake of tweaking our business too early, like doing things now that we really have no right to do. Like, as you were saying, franchising your business so early on is not something that makes sense to do in hindsight, but by reading all these books telling you how to leverage your business and how you should make a lot of money, you'd probably think that was the thing to do.
Yeah.
Have you, I don't know if I really have a question. I was just more admiring the fact that there is a leveled approach to the system, because I don't see that very often in any business training. Like, even if you go and get a university degree in small business or business management, there doesn't seem to be a tiered approach in learning.
Yeah.
And it's not, it doesn't depend on experience. I think anyone who's about to open a business or is just starting off in business has to take the view that it's an apprenticeship for at least a few years. And if you start making money in that time, either you're lucky or you've got great people around you, or a combination of the two.
Yeah, and I think it's a tiered approach to learning, but also a tiered approach to what to implement when.
Yes, absolutely.
So our model is also a cash flow model. So we want to be able to grow a practice within 3 years to $1 million a year, cash flow funded, not having to invest money into it. It's another difference between typically a practice and a business. To do that, you have to be smart about what you do when. So often people, particularly people who are experts, get told write a book on advice. And for us, that's a blue belt activity. So that's something that you do when you're up to $480,000 a year or looking towards that. And a lot of people write a book, we would say, too early. People at white belt write a book. They end up writing a crappy book because they just don't have the experience, the case studies to write good stuff. They also then don't have the distribution network to get it out, and they don't have the money to invest in it, to get it, to put the PR behind it and to take advantage of it, and end up with 1,000 crappy books sitting in a garage.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've heard that happen before, yes. Too many times.
I think in your position, Peter, one of the things that we wanted to get your perspective on is, what do you see as some of the key trends that small business owners need to be aware of for 2013, being that we're now almost in the middle of November?
Yep. I think the continuing availability of offshore labour and that trend is a big one. So that anything that can be done by somebody remotely is more and more going to be. And if you're in an industry, and there are industries that will get wiped out from that, and it's the same with the internet and things being able to be done online or through technology. So I would be very worried if I was running a travel agency business. That's a whole industry that's not here, but it's getting cut drastically because of it to be done by just through the internet. We don't need travel agents anymore. We can book our own tickets.
It's going to go the way of the bookstore.
Yeah. And I think be really careful. Like, there's industry trends that come from those mega trends of stuff getting offshored and stuff getting being able to be done through IT. And I think as products and services become more and more commoditized, that the ability to give advice with those becomes more and more of a differentiator. So even if you're in a small business, being able to position yourself as the best person to educate your clients and to give them the best value outside the product and service, being able to also provide education and advice is a key differentiator.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think, the travel agency example, the ones that are doing well still are the ones that offer the value adds, the really, really personalised service, the shepherding through the trip if there's any problems, all that kind of stuff. So, the offshoring thing's an interesting thing that you mentioned. I know when you were doing the seminar, you mentioned that your staff are located in the Philippines, and Adam and I both have staff over there too.
Love the Philippines.
Yes, me too. Have you?
I'm getting myself there next year if it kills me. That's my plan.
Yeah,
that's
me too.
My plan.
My business partner has just been there, actually, Peter.
Yeah, Christina, who's the business manager, who is fabulous, who's based in Manila, and she has an assistant who works for her in Manila as well. and they have a Melbourne. Christina has a Melbourne phone number, so there's an 03 phone number that she answers over there. Just nothing in my practice that she can't do. She can't only sending out books when people buy books. Obviously, I don't want them posted from Manila, but then we just have a local VA who does that stuff. But apart from that, she does pretty much everything and does it fabulously.
Yeah, wow. So you've got the one staff member over there, or?
So she's an assistant. So Christina's my business manager,
yep.
And I works for Christina. So she has a full-time assistant, and she's full-time managing my business.
Yeah,
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How long have you been working with her and her assistant?
Christina's been with me a bit over a year. We just had our first anniversary, which was great. And she's coming out to Australia next year, so probably next March she'll come out and spend a week or 10 days or something here and actually get to see a couple of programs that we run and what it all looks like.
Yeah, wonderful.
And her for 3 months.
They, I think they really appreciate the staff members over there really appreciate that sort of interaction. I know they were all very excited. Our staff were very excited when my business partner went over there last week. And, putting that face to the voice is really important.
Yeah.
Simon, I'm doing Bali next year again in May. Maybe we should do the Philippines then Bali.
I think that's a very good idea.
All right. Maybe we should ask for some sponsorship from our listeners to get us over there. I'm just saying. Can't help but try.
We should fill Peter in on that. Peter, Adam's running a Bali fitness retreat that starts next week, so we're gonna run it again. You're gonna run it again next year. So.
Absolutely, probably twice next year, and we really do have to get over to see Leah. We share the time of a virtual assistant whose name's Leah, who's actually running a business for me in the Philippines, locating virtual assistants for other business owners. So we need to get over there and say hello to Leah personally very soon. So that explains why, apart from wanting to see the Philippines, Peter, I'm actually really interested in going to meet the people that I employ over there. So that'd be cool.
So the Philippines thing kind of ties in nicely to the mobile working lifestyle thing that we were speaking about before. When you were doing the seminar, Peter, you were speaking about the fact that you went to Bali, I think, just before you got involved with Thought Leaders. And you were doing sort of 1 day a week in your business, and you realised that that there was so much more potential in what you could do.
Yeah, I had this moment of clarity where I'd been running the business for 10 years and was getting a bit tired and had axed the franchising, but had grown it to through subcontracting and I had a team of 10 working around the country in the business coaching business, but I was still only making myself white belt income out of it. So I was making it was around $100,000 a year that I was getting. It looked fabulous. We had a team all over the country and beautiful office and a PA. I was stressed. I was working 6 days a week, and we went away. My wife and Trish went to Bali for 10 days because that was as long as I could be away from the business without the wheels starting to fall off. And I had this insight when I was over there, thinking that when I was at university I could have a 2-month holiday, and now that I was this, in inverted commas, successful businessman, I could now only have 1 week holiday.
That's the definition of success, isn't it?
That's brilliant.
So I made a decision that I was going to restructure my business so I could run it from Bali, and that holiday was in May 3 years ago. And then that Christmas, so that for the rest of that year, I let everybody go their own way, take some of the clients. I picked half a dozen clients that I really enjoyed working with and kept them, got rid of the PA, let the lease on the office go, and then went to Bali for 2 months, December, January, and had lined up all my clients to be coached on 1 day. And so I'd spent one day a week in Bali on the phone coaching these 6 clients, and was actually making more money doing that from Bali by the pool 1 day a week than I was 6 days a week stressed to the eyeballs in Melbourne. And thought, yeah, this is better.
Were you completely open with those 6 clients in what you were doing, or did you just say, look, I've got to spend some time overseas, this is your time that we're going to speak on the phone now? And
so we started working on the phone beforehand, and it was also, for them, it was also modelling what's possible. So saying this is, you can create it however you want it to be. Rules about how this has to look. If you want to run your business 1 day a week from overseas, then create it so that that's how it is. If you want to be working 2 days a week, not 6 days a week, then You just need to create and have to sort of tell how it should be. You should be working between these hours on these days in this way. And really, if you're a small business owner, you should probably be doing double that. And we buy into it a little bit too easily rather than saying, okay, no, I can create it however I want it to look.
I totally agree. I
mean, it takes a bit.
It's something that Adam and I speak about a lot about on the show is, what's important to you in your business. For example, like for me, it's getting that hour to do exercise every single day. And if I don't have time to do it in the morning, then I'll take the time at lunch to do it,
I think I'd be interested to hear your opinion on this, Peter. Do you come across people who are like they're small business owners and they like your idea of building a practice, but they have no real idea of why they started their business in the first place? Do you come across that very often?
Yeah, definitely. And also, so people who don't know or sort of lost the connection to why they were doing it and up a little bit jaded. Also have people who love the idea of a thought leadership practice but don't feel like they have enough expertise that people would pay for. I think mostly we're too close to our own stuff to see the value of it.
Yeah, and I heard a great little quote that, to be an expert, all you need to know is more than the person that you're talking to.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a cynical way of looking at it, but it can show you that as long as you have something to share that the person that you're talking to doesn't know, or you can better explain it to that person, then you have value to provide. And a lot of small business owners or people who are coming into this field of being an expert in some area don't see themselves as that. I can give you a really simple example. My first business was, well, apart from mowing lawns when I was 11, my first business has actually made any money as a gym. I own a gym now, but that started off as me as a personal trainer. Before I started that, I was actually an assistant instructor in martial arts, and I was enjoying it so much, and it came so naturally to me that I was thinking to myself, I couldn't ever charge for this. Like, why would anyone want to pay me? I'm having too much of a good time. I think sometimes we see that with people, especially in what you talk about, this thought leadership thing. They don't see the value in what they've got, and they almost feel guilty charging people to share that knowledge because it comes easy, or they like doing it. So it's an interesting kind of situation.
Dominique Bertolucci, a fabulous thought leader in London, says that she wants to do work that she loves so much that she would happily do it for free.
Yeah.
And provide so much value that the client would have happily paid double.
That's brilliant.
Nice way of capturing that.
Yeah, I love it when people say things that I'm thinking that I just don't have the smarts to actually put into words. It's one of those.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Well, speaking of martial arts, Peter, you're a second Dan black belt in Aikido, aren't you? Is that your de-stressor?
Yeah, that, and now too. Time with Scarlett, time with little girl, but definitely over the last decade, that discipline of 3 times a week on the mat, whatever that takes. I think, like you were talking about, your hour of exercise, so being able to say, okay, middle of winter. It's a freezing cold morning. There's no dojo, but that's what I do. It's a good. It's definitely a de-stressor, and it's a different approach. But it also comes. I think another great saying that somebody else, a ski instructor, once said to me, "How you do anything is how you do everything."
Ooh, that's deep.
Yeah,
I like that one.
Yeah, it's great, and it's the same.
It's amazing what you can find out about yourself in a dojo that can translate into just about anything. Like I say to my wife incessantly, if I don't get to jiu-jitsu today, I'm going to kill someone. And it's not that I'm getting violent, it's just that I don't have that outlet or that way to switch everything else off and just focus on one thing. And then you can learn, you get humbled when you're at a martial arts school, and you can take that out and say, oh, it's not all that bad, all this business stuff, I can work it out now. I've got a way. I got out of that really hairy situation when I was grappling. That's not too dissimilar to this hairy situation that I've got in the business that a solution has to be found for. So they work really well together.
Yeah, and I think a lot of principles definitely come across from martial arts in the business. We talk about always bringing a beginner's mind, so that even if it's a technique that I've done 10,000 times, how can I look at it not like this is something that I've mastered, but from a beginner's mind, what can I learn about this? And I think it's the same in business. If we can always be asked, not coming to it saying, I know this, but saying, what can I learn?
Yeah, the empty cup that's ready to be filled, that kind of mentality. We could talk about martial arts forever, Peter, so we might have to do that after we finish recording, I think.
Peter, the last question we always ask our guests is, how are you currently simplifying your business?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's funny, my each year I have a focus for my practice and my life, and this year was family, which was fitting. Next year is leverage for me. So it's thinking about everywhere in my practice, what can I do to leverage it more effectively, to leverage my time more effectively. So I think having the team offshore is one of the ways that simplifies my life. If not so much the business, it puts the complexity outside of myself. A real obsession with having getting procedures documented is another way of doing that. I'm trying to keep my mind as empty as possible. I think it's similar to what you're saying, Simon, about the empty cup. And as much as possible have responsibility outside of myself and have systems documented outside of myself that the team follows. Also simplifying having my website, so petercook.com, having the messages there really simple. I think there's a discipline to get to the other side of the complexity of what we know to the simplicity of what we can offer. Discipline there, but I think that's another key way that I simplify. I'm back to simplify my business, is to say what's the simplest, down to at a simplest level. What is, if I'm giving a 1 hour talk, what is the idea in one sentence? If I only had 60 seconds to give the talk, what would that 60 seconds be?
What's the gold nugget? Yeah,
exactly. And it's harder. It's actually harder to put a talk into 60 seconds than it is into 60 minutes. But it's a discipline to do that before you give the 60-minute talk.
Well, we like to have a quote every week on Simplify, and this week you might not think that this guy would be the first choice who would come to mind. I'm referring to Mr. Mel Brooks.
Yes.
Dead set legend.
He said, look, I really don't want to wax philosophical, but I will say that if you're alive, you've got to flap your arms and legs. You've got to jump around a lot. You've got to make a lot of noise, because life is the very opposite of death. And therefore, as I see it, if you're quiet, you're not living. You've got to be noisy, or at least your thoughts should be noisy and colourful and lively. Wonderful quote to end on. Peter, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Mike, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed our conversation and learned some stuff too.
You can find out more about Peter at petercook.com, and you can subscribe to his e-newsletter, The Word from Pete, which I await with relish every time it comes through.
Oh, I've got to subscribe myself.
You do.
I do. Get on that.
And of course, to find out more about Adam and myself, you can go to simplifymysmallbusiness.com, visit their website this week for lots of links and goodies to do with Peter. And of course, check out the last couple of episodes if you haven't listened to them. Finding Your Niche was our last episode a fortnight ago. And we will see you again in 2 weeks' time.